Could I ask a quick favour? If you're listening to this, please hit the subscribe button and the follow button. Like, share, rate, review the podcast. It helps more than you realise.
So I'm going to drop the bomb early here, and said it's not something I've told everyone yet, but I had a recent diagnosis of ADHD. Well, a form of ADHD called ADD, more the attention deficit disorder side rather than with the H, the hyperactivity, their mindset. So just little things in life made me realise, well, if you sort of set a goal for something and you're open to opportunities, don't know exactly how you're going to get there, or even if you're best qualified to achieve that goal, that positive mindset and visualization is so helpful in terms of environmental sustainability, social sustainability. Because without people feeling empowered to do things better for the environment, then it's all together. That's really important to me. How that makes me feel. All sorts of different emotions. There's some anger there as well, and also sadness with the so many species that we've lost. But the positive side of we are now, as businesses, individuals, actually in a time in history where we are aware of what's happened, but we can do something about it, and I think that's really, really exciting. When these people start talking to each other, incredible things can happen. You get that collaboration. And just everything. We're ultimately all connected. Part of this one system on planet Earth. So let's embrace it and make the most of it.
I believe every business owner has a story to tell. Through seeking true, authentic insights about the entrepreneurial journey, I provide a platform for our peers to share their stories and inspire those that listen. This is the County Business Talk podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. My guest on the podcast this week has had a variety of marketing roles. He's worked on an airline, ran his own video production company for over 6 years with his brother. He left the business in 2020 to start a new career and is now Associate Director at EY Breakthrough Incentives. And has become a good friend of mine over the past few years. Delighted to welcome Ed Chinn to the podcast. Ed, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Sam. Really good to be here, and hello everyone listening. Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it a few times, haven't we, over the last sort of year or so, and said, look, we'll have to get you on at some point. Great, we've got it in the diary, and we're here now in my happy place and ready to have a chat. Look, mate, as always, we're going to delve straight in, just sort of tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your story, and your journey.
Well, how far back do you want to go? Because my grandparents from Brighton, it might even go back beyond that. Always known Brighton and Sussex boy at heart. Yeah. But folks moved down to London when I was born, and I was born in Wandsworth in London. Yeah. It's there's my life is not the most consistent in terms of career or all sorts of things. So I'm going to drop the bomb early here. And so it's not something I've told everyone yet, but I had a recent diagnosis of ADHD. Well, a form of ADHD called ADD, more the attention deficit disorder side rather than with the H, the hyperactivity. Yeah. And there's lots in my story so far and career. There's lots of things started and not necessarily finished, but there's been loads of really interesting experiences, unusual experiences along the way. So it's definitely a case of swings and roundabouts. School life. That was interesting in London. Did okay at school, but reports are always, Ed, should really try hard. He's not, delivering on his potential. Yeah. He's always sort of looks like he's looking out the window, not paying attention. And also, it's a bit of a tough time from like on the social side of things, because I think there's some aspects of the ADD where sort of some social cues, which maybe not as clear to me at the time, but just thought that was me, and you get on with it.
Because this was a recent diagnosis, you said, so like, as a child that was not picked up at all, or?
That's right. I mean, I think when you think of ADHD, do you think of kind of kids with way too much energy, maybe causing trouble? There's a kind of quite a narrow sort of reductionist stereotype. And what's been a really interesting journey since the diagnosis, the nuance of it. There's finding out, okay, that explains some things which have happened in the past, but there's also other aspects where you think, cool, this is like the superpower element, so you can really drill down on those. So this year it was having that diagnosis, didn't change anything, because that is me, how I've always been, but really exciting in terms of that self-awareness, and sort of how to concentrate on the good stuff going forwards, and working on strengths.
Was it a form of, maybe when you got a form of like a relief almost in something where you sort of looked at and went, that all makes sense now, or?
Definitely. It's like getting a bit of a monkey off the back in terms of, you can blame yourself. I always thought, like, I'm not working hard enough.
Really?
And so I think if I probably could do anything I wanted if I just worked hard enough. And there are definitely elements of that which are true. But it is handy to know, a bit like a football team, who's different people have got different strengths and weaknesses. They play in different parts on the field. And then I'm going to be analogy central today, but if you sort of know the rules of the game, it's a lot easier to play the game. Because I think, and also the funny thing about ADHD possibly is actually, rather than people appearing kind of wired, is they can kind of also sort of drift off and sort of look like they're sort of, I'm trying to think of the expression, sort of, floating in space, daydreaming. That's the one. So, it didn't get picked up, but I think it didn't so much back then.
Sure.
But it's just really encouraging seeing. First of all, it was. It's good to see in the press it being spoken about more. And there's an article about this chap who got diagnosed at 37. And just going through that article is like, tick that box, tick that box, tick that box.
Wow.
So it's my sort of thought that perhaps there was something worth exploring there. And very much not as an excuse for anything, but that self-awareness of, how can I be a happier person, be a more productive person, and so that's really empowering. That's sort of that self-awareness aspect.
Because we do, I think, as we get older, in general, we like to think we become a little bit more self-aware. But it's interesting, as you say. So up until then, till you sort of read that article, you didn't necessarily. You read that article and looked at it and was like, okay, that's me. I'll fit into that category, and that's what made you then go and explore more about.
That's it. And so. And also, it's really encouraging people, like in the Brighton and Sussex business community, people being really open about sort of the mental health side of things and neurodiversity. I don't think he might be mentioning, because I think he'd said on a podcast, but James Dempster,
absolutely,
about his sort of self-discovery. And I think for him as well, it's a really positive thing. It's like how, rather than, this will get me out of doing this, or like, what will get me out of games at school, it's like, great, knowing this, I can do more.
That's an amazing thing, because I think, like you're saying, I think if people were, that's why it's great to obviously get you on and we could have a chat about this, because I think anything surrounding mental health, surrounding neurodiversity, whatever, they're creating spaces where people are a little bit more open and brave enough to share their stories and how it's impacted them, but from a positive point of view as well, it helps more people to be able to talk openly about that, and like you say, almost see what you've got as a superpower as opposed to a negative connotation, which some people would, and I think historically maybe would have looked at it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is the whole thing about trying to fit in, and that does mask it as well. And sort of going back to the thing at school, I didn't automatically fit in. So through the schools I went to and university, I think I sort of gradually learned over time how to adapt, which is good in one sense, but also I think masking things, keeping things under the surface, that's generally not a good idea. So it's all coming out today. Where during kind of lockdown, especially, I was sort of at unusual levels of like anxiety, which sort of led a bit to depression, but nothing, not serious depression, but enough sort of low mood to go, something's not quite right here, a bit of a warning sign. And even sort of on the, I can only talk from my perspective, my experience, but even like some panic attacks, which is, well, not knowingly had before. So it's like, right, I've got to get to the bottom of this. I didn't feel like I was necessarily naturally, naturally anxious, or certainly not. I don't think a naturally depressed person. So, is there something? Are these the symptoms of something else? So, so that's what kind of working that out led to finding out more about ADHD, and then going through the sort of process of an official diagnosis by I'd never get this right. Psychiatrist or psychologist. I think it's psychiatrist.
Well, I'm interested to talk about, like you said, about the sort of school life and in university, and that sort of need to fit in. So, was that a struggle? School? Did you find that a bit of a struggle through the school life, or?
Definitely. I mean, it's sort of easier to talk about, but at the time, it's like, what do people want to do generally? It's especially when you're kids, is fit in, and sticking out is not ideal. But what's really nice now, actually, with the younger generation, I don't know whether I'm imagining this, but people seem to be embracing individuality more. Yeah, there's still trends and things, but people are sort of making a feature of what makes them different, which I think is awesome. It's more texture, because if everyone's the same, if we all average out to having to perform the same, then that'd be a pretty dull world, I think. And also, averages are some weird human made-up thing, because I don't know if you could call this a joke, but statisticians joke about when Bill Gates walks into a bar. On average, everyone in the bar is a billionaire. So it's complete nonsense. So it's nice to have that diversity, I think. And that has so many benefits, cultural, financial, for businesses. So so that is another aspect of. I think I've always had reasonable empathy, but it's made me a much more empathetic person. I think. Make sure I pronounce that right. And it's sort of just being aware of, with everyone's got stuff going on. The more you get to know anyone, you realise that they've got their stuff going on through experiences in their life or within themselves. So it's been helpful, I think, to getting to know other people better.
And have you found, since you've become a bit more open and spoken openly about it, that you found other people that have approached you or spoke to you again a bit more honestly and openly as well?
Definitely. I don't tend to lead with it. But it's interesting, since I've become more aware of it myself, how in conversations with people that they're talking about sort of a loved one or someone they know, that they might be sort of going for a diagnosis, or so I find that their opportunities have come up. For example, it's really pleased to be supporting Christina Pericate's Startup Grind chapter in Brighton. And
because you recently a judge for the pitch battles or something, was it?
That's right.
How is that?
I was terrified about doing it, but it went really, really well. Again, because I think Brighton, especially, I'm not saying it's just in Brighton or in Sussex, but I think people in Brighton, especially, tend to look for the positive, and so I think I felt in a really nice space doing it. Christina's brilliant at hosting.
She's awesome.
And one of the people were pitching for an app related to neurodivergency. So again, I wasn't planning on saying anything about it, but I said, no, this is a particular interest because I've recently had this diagnosis. I think the app was called Uncommon. I might need to check on that. And it was all about focusing on the strengths of neurodivergent people, and forgive me, Uncommon if I'm getting this wrong. No. But and also sort of helping neurodivergent people more to take part, and for other people to sort of get the best out of them, get the best out of themselves. So that was an opportune moment just to mention it. And it's nice because then you've got that sort of because this lady had ADHD herself, and you have that sort of connection, and it helps them sort of feel more comfortable talking about it. But then someone came up to me who's in the audience afterwards and said, "Oh, it's really interesting." And two people did actually, but and for me that helped as well. There's a mutual friend of ours. Is just I think on a comment he put on LinkedIn about ADHD. So I just checked with him. It was actually at one of the county business club's networking events.
There you go. Love that. We create these spaces. We give it a shout out. We'll give it a shout out, mate. Always give it a plug.
What's nice is things like that. It's more than just talking about business. It's a chance to get to know people as well. What makes them tick. So was that sort of like a off the cuff thing? Joking or do you? And that's so helpful because he sort of taught me through the sort of implications, strategies around it. So that was really good. Yeah, like I say, don't tend to lead with it, and I don't sort of use it as a sort of necessarily. I know this is rich, and all I've been talking about so far is it. But sort of, I think trying not to let it sort of define my identity. I think it's definitely a part of it. It's part of who I am, and I think probably in time it'll change from being disorder at the end to just difference. I think ideally, and I think difference is a really positive thing, and it's great to see that generally being more embraced.
I love that, and I think you're right. Look, from Brighton especially, I guess we sort of live maybe. Talking about differences, for me, we live in a little bit of a bubble here. Obviously, I've spoke to you before about I've got the twins, and Luca's very gender neutral. So, we embrace that, and it's amazing to be. But like you say, that's his difference, and that's how he's different to everyone else, and which is amazing. You want to celebrate that as opposed to look at the negative connotations that come with that. And I think, as you sort of mentioned, like, we are all different, because if we was all the same, it would be a boring place to be, wouldn't it? So it's great. But I think what's really powerful is that by you sharing stories and people actually being more open and honest about, whether it be gender or neurodiversity, whatever, but creating spaces where we're able to talk about those things, then it normalises that. It makes everything. We're all embracing the difference between all of us, and I think that's where the key is. And it'd be interesting, like I say, I think in Brighton and Sussex in general, I wonder whether we're in a little bit of a bubble here, and because it's such an amazing space to be. But hopefully that does spread a little bit further afield as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's interesting on Richard Freeman's Always Possible. On his podcast, one of the questions he asked is along the lines of, does Brighton want to be like London or Cambridge, and does it want to have all these industries growing out of it, or like sort of physical industries almost, or is it best for Brighton to focus on its strengths and its happy place of being an awesome kind of like IP factory and just coming up with really great ideas, almost like a not a lab, that doesn't sound right at all, but somewhere for people to sort of
an innovation
push the limits.
Hub, like we are in Plus X now, in innovation hubs. It's almost like Brighton as a whole is a little bit like that, like you say, encouraging whether it be entrepreneurship or ideas, innovation, and certainly from, we're recording this a couple of weeks before Pride and stuff like that, how much we embrace, like I say, gender and the LGBTQ plus community, and we link that with neurodiversity, and just being so open-minded, I think is such a magical place to be. Like I say, bringing up Luca and Sienna in here is probably the best place in the world I could bring them up in my opinion, because of people's open-mindedness. I wonder, I'll go back to my school life in Essex, and obviously that was many moons ago, so it was a slightly different world then anyway, but wonder how that was my first fear for Luca, and I think growing up would have been bullied, and it's not the case here, which is more embraced, which was amazing. Just obviously touching then with the school life, was you bullied at all at school because of that, or was there anything like that within school or not?
Yeah, that word is still one of those which sort of it's softened, like sort of the impact of that word, but I'd say so, but it was that sort of, whenever it's been a bit of a theme in life when people have said you can't do something or you shouldn't do something, or even if someone or there's a physical limitation, and someone says, well, with that you're not going to be able to do X. It sort of pushed me on, I think,
really? Rather
than I think there's you can always, what you've got control of is how you respond to things, and I think I've got better at responding to things, and funny enough, so skipping ahead a bit, there's things which happened in the interim, but after I got my commercial pilot's license, which was something I've always wanted to fly, but that was also maybe a slightly, in a funny sort of way, impulsive thing to do as well. So so that was what the hardest thing I've ever done, but got through it, and so thought, right, what can I do when I got back? So EasyJet recruiting for cabin crew, and so got cracking with that, and probably some of the best life experiences I've had are cabin crew for EasyJet. There's a reason why they're really nice and friendly bunch, and obviously I can't compare to any other airlines, but customer service is really good because it's, again, empathy, as well, so important in all areas of life. But understanding that, people before they've got on the aircraft might have had a nightmare of a day, and if they are tetchy or worse, is to take that sort of into account, and rather than sort of reaction initially might have been, oh, I'm offended. Oh, I'm taking this personally. It's quite a nice challenge to actually okay, how can I de-escalate that? How can I actually dig a bit deeper and find out what this person wants or what is the problem, and within whatever grasp I can is to hopefully make them leave the aircraft happier than they were when they got on it. Sounds cheesy, but it's a really satisfying thing to do that as from a personal perspective, but also I think people talk more about a situation that's gone wrong which was turned right than they do about good experiences.
Absolutely. And I think more so in business, in life in general, I think that we're faced with certain problems sometimes, and immediately you can become offended by something someone says, whereas it's such an actual skill, I think, to be able to take yourself out of that, not be offended by it, but actually, like you said, ask that question about what's happened to that person that day to make them react in that way to me, or call me that whatever they've called me, or kick off as they have. There's something, and how can I diffuse that situation and make their life a bit better? Because
absolutely,
what a brilliant skill to have, and what a magical play. Because it's so easy, isn't it? If someone was to say something that was offensive to you, that you immediately react. That's I guess a natural human reaction, isn't it? To go straight to the what are you saying that for, or be confrontational in some way, but to diffuse that situation and take that step back. But I guess that's that level of self-awareness that maybe comes with maturity, or or whatever in the past. I think it's interesting to see that. But so that's something that you had from the cabin. Because how long was you there, cabin crew, for then?
All together, I think it's about 4 years, and a little bit of a sabbatical. I did actually get a flying job for a bit.
Wow.
As what's called a safety pilot. So that was like sitting in the right hand seat, the co-pilot seat, and there to take over if something happened to the captain. But basically a lot of paperwork required, and helping at each end. So that was fixed wing, so like a normal aeroplane rather than a helicopter. And that was taking people from the Isle of Man over to mainly Liverpool, so they could go to sort of a more specialist treatment. And that was a hell of a eye-opener. That was as well. But I'm glad that I had kind of like a flying job. But
was that a dream of yours then from a young age, that you wanted to do that? Or
I love the sensation of flying, like probably a lot of people dream of flying, especially when I was a kid. And just something about it. I'm not entirely sure the reasons why. Probably maybe slightly different to some other people. Some really love the technical aspect of it, but it was actually the sensation of flying. But actually, there's a heck of a lot of paperwork, detail, systems, management, being an airline pilot. And hindsight, being 2020, it probably wasn't the best thing to go into. There's elements of where that hyper focus thing came in, but that was a really challenging thing to do. But I'm so glad I did it. In an ideal world, it would have been nice to have gone up the ladder a little bit more, and sort of maybe fly jets or things. But saying that, I don't actually. It's easy to say, not now being captain of an A380 for British Airways, to say this. But I think genuinely, knowing what I know now, probably wasn't quite the right career choice for me. But and expensive, So that's get a massive loan to do it. An expensive lesson, but no, I don't regret it. I've regretted things, I think, at the time, but looking back on things, everything feels like it's been a bit like different parts of an apprenticeship for what is happening now at the ripe old age of 43.
But I love that as well, like, because ultimately we go through life, and I'm similar to you. Tried loads of different things. Some things have worked, some things haven't. I look back and go, oh, should I have done that? But they're all part of what moulds us to get to where we are now and become the people we are, and give us the skill sets to go on and do what we do today, isn't it? That's part of the whole journey, isn't it? Of life, business, whatever that looks like. That's all part of it, isn't it? And what, like you say, it's what makes us who we are today.
Absolutely. I think as long as we learn from things, pick things up from experiences, and I think, sometimes it's other people that see that in you, rather than necessarily yourself being, aware of these skills that you pick up along the way. But because
it's great to look that we're not sitting here at 43 and you're not looking back. We're talking about your journey, and you've not said, "I wish I'd done the commercial pilot. I wish I'd got involved in flying. I really had an ambition to do it, but I never got round to. I never done that." But we're not having that conversation, because you're saying, "I did do that, and I didn't carry on doing it, and I've come out of it. But what a great experience, and I've taken that experience from that. That's surely it's better." It's what hopefully the kids will get from me, is that it's better to try stuff and then take a different path, and then take another different path, because all those experiences will be great experiences, whatever that is.
Definitely. And it's got rather a nice time with what I'm doing now.
Of course.
With helping people get the tax credits, tax relief for their R&D. That's what that's all about, is people trying new and different things, because we don't move forward, we don't progress unless we try different. We can strike lucky sometimes, so there's quite a nice synergy there, really, because I think some people are so terrified of failure. It can be debilitating, and Jeremy Jacobs obviously speaks very well on this.
Absolutely.
So I think sort of once you can get over that fear, and it is probably the way that, hopefully less so now, but it definitely probably when we were kids, like failure. I remember like failing a maths exam when I was at 10 at school, and I was in floods of tears. That was the most important thing in the world, but important, but not the most important thing in the world. Yeah.
It's still like, again, I've spoke quite a lot on here recently about education and how we're measured and what that looks like. It's so broken, our education system, and the way that we're tested. And even, like you say, you go back a few years, even look at people with neurodiversity and those type of issues that maybe just absorb content or learn in a completely different way to other people, and there's not, the curriculum doesn't necessarily allow for that. So I look at, again, I'll refer back to Luke, but Luke, we've got twins today. We obviously, there's that comparison because they're the same age and they're growing up together, but and academically Sienna's really doing quite well. We've got a report and it's great. Luca has sort of come back and Sandy's a little bit behind, and I'm like, at 7 years old, that frustrates me a little bit to go, he's behind because he sat a SAT test that didn't perhaps do quite as well at, and I'm like, he's 7 years old and he's so creative.
Snapshot in a moment, isn't he? Might have been having an off day. There's so many factors. Yeah. And
I just that really I listen to you talk, and I think it's great, like you say, like the encouragement for me personally to teach the next generation that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail, like you said, because I think it wasn't like that when we was at school, and it was, this is the process and this is what I just think we need to encourage that so much more, and that it's okay to make their mistakes and fail, but learn from them. It's the learning that's the key element, I guess, isn't it? That you learn from them mistakes, learn from your failures, and that's how you take that.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that people should ignore their weaknesses. There are some things you'd ideally want to get up to a certain standard.
I'm keen to just talk about, we've gone through the process of you with the from the airline, and then I want to talk, obviously in 2014 you and your brother, let's talk a little bit about that, and obviously starting the business Eagle and Beagle, and talk to me a little bit about that. What was the inspiration about starting that business together, or going into that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so to give a bit of a backstory to that, so it probably helped sort of pick up around about university time, and I suppose I had sort of some self-awareness back at university time that I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Not sure I still do. Yeah.
I'll tell you a secret.
When I'm a big boy.
Me, you and me both. When we grow up, we can decide.
I've done it again. I've distracted myself. But
you're saying at university you wasn't sure what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so in terms of choosing the course, I did ancient history because at school, in the sort of relatively limited curriculum, that's the thing I enjoyed the most. And I found that, okay, if I tend to do better at things that I enjoy and have got me engaged. Again, I'm going to go off slight segues. You might have to bring me back in here. I think sometimes maybe people think, oh, someone's got ADHD, so it just sounds like they're spoiled. But they just put the big boy pants on and crack on. But there's a really strong sensation. A much bigger. It becomes pretty much a physical hurdle to doing things, just the way, I don't know in any great detail, but the way the brain's sort of wired slightly differently. So I suppose, going back to that, I had self-awareness that to do something I enjoy, then I can sort of figure it out from there. And sort of, at least with a course like that, it probably helps to develop critical thinking more than it does at school. And I think, I think people generally would be a lot happier if they could sort of felt better prepared to critically analyse what, at the moment, what Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss are saying. So during that time, also, because, this is where I'm coming from in terms of what I wanted to do. I seriously thought there was a chance I could become a Formula One driver, and I started late.
Oh, really?
But in my mind, I was pretty certain. So, I was very fortunate that I was able to race in the Caterham series. So Caterham is a car that used to be made by Lotus, and they had really cracking little cars. They look really old-fashioned, but they go like the clappers. And I did 2000. I graduated uni in 2001 doing the series, and again, there's just so much experiences to lessons to be learned during that. I was trying to prove myself at the beginning and crashing left, right and centre. Then because I've sort of bruised my confidence, I went right to the back of the grid. Wow. And then it took a mentor going around on the track, following them, building up, and just building up confidence. Rather than skill level improving hugely, it was the confidence. Yeah. And then almost overnight, I was fighting at the front of the pack. So mindset, that was a big lesson there. And I think it's probably wise that when people are growing up, they think, this is a good lesson to write down these notes, because it's so easy to forget them at crucial times. But after that, I thought, maybe Formula One might be a bit of a long shot.
It's never too late.
I went then, because my dad was a barrister.
Well, okay.
And he said, well, law, everything revolves around law essentially, to one degree or another. So you can study law, then become a solicitor who specialises in motorsport. And even though that sounds unlikely, I did actually do some work experience for a firm, and I was going through the case, this Formula One case to do with the Jordan team. That shows how long ago it was.
Wow.
So I went off to law school, but again, it's like self-awareness thing, like trying to fit in. This feels like what I should be doing.
Almost like maybe your parents' expectation of what, or other people's expectation of what you potentially should do, or
yeah, and then just realizing that okay, I don't know what is different, but these guys seem to sink in, these case precedents and things like that, the dates and the Smith versus Brown, 1892, and that was a bit of a challenge. Coursework was weirdly all right because I do that, when the pressure built up, and I had to do it, and I had to just like focus, so I can sort of use that kind of that sort of hyper focus sort of plus side of the ADHD side of things, and get something done.
But that's interesting, isn't it? You like again, back to the education, we'll dip back into that, but about how some people do, they can, rather than sit in an exam where under that pressure, don't respond as well to that necessarily. And other people will, over coursework and stuff, anything based around that will excel in because they haven't got that time pressure in regards to 3 hours in a room doing answering those questions and got to remember X, Y, and Z. Whereas the coursework process, people just again, how you learn, how you perform better in that way, and I think so many more people perform potentially better in that way. But again, the curriculum's not set up for that, is it?
That's it. Absolutely. So yeah, on that course, I got like the equivalent of 2 1s, and dissertation, I even surprised myself, got a first. Amazing. In that.
So you actually finished law school.
Depends how you quantify that. I was there the whole time. But then the exam results came through. I had never seen exam results like it, and I suppose I'd sort of pushed myself to the extreme of trying to make myself do something I was not that motivated by, and which probably just didn't play to my strengths. There might have been a way of doing it, figuring a way out, but I just thought, okay, you weren't obviously working hard enough, or this isn't for you. So I was more sort of putting it on me rather than what, sort of learning environment or what, how can I sort of make this possible? So that was, even though I was never in love with doing this law course, it's still that knocked the confidence a bit, for sure. Definitely.
So did you fail that course or?
I did, yeah. I think the exam results was like between 15 and 19 or 20%, things like that. So I'm not even sure I spelled my name right on the front of the paper. I think you get a few percent for that.
I've had a couple of them in the past. I think I got an N in one of my A-levels, which was you nearly passed, but not quite. So, okay, thanks.
Thanks for the encouragement.
Yeah. I was nearly there. If I had spelt my name, I might have got there. But anyway.
So after that, there's a bit of bumbling about really, and kind of marketing roles, very sort of junior, part-time marketing roles. But something kind of came out the blue, and it's ever since then it's made me really appreciate the power of networking, and also conversations as well. I think because I think networking by some people who probably don't do it. Maybe think it's just people just sort of selling to each other, rotating around a room, just exchanging business cards without listening to what the other person's saying. But I think, especially in Brighton, that's rarely the case, and it's a lovely environment for networking. But going back to my point, my dad was a chiropodist in the Haywards Heath,
Right.
and because I kind of made him aware of the sort of things I'm looking at and I'd like to do. So I'm in my early 20s now, and so he was having his feet done by this lady, and she's talking about her daughter, and she works for this big London agency, and gets the phone number of the daughter. Realise they've got kids, children, kind of interested in the same thing. She's a bit further down the line, so eventually I pluck up the courage to ring this number, and she says, "Yeah, we've got a division that sort of exclusively works in Formula One, sponsoring the Honda." So the client was Lucky Strike.
Well, okay,
So
okay.
yeah,
It's
it's not without its people might sort of think that's brave.
Yeah,
Talking about working for
yeah.
a cigarette company, but at the time they were phasing out from owning the Formula One team to becoming title sponsors, and then after 2 years they phased out. But anyway, so going back to what she said, is that something that'd be of interest? I think they're looking for someone for work experience at the moment. It's like, bloody hell, sign me up straight away. And then I think it was the summer 2004, and then in 2005, just over Christmas, they had asked me back, that was awesome. Absolutely like a pig in muck. Yeah,
Really? That's great. Isn't it? So you come just trying to piece it together. So you coming out of
Good luck.
the law school. But no, it's great. That's what I mean. Like you come out of the obviously law school, not with a qualification, knowing that's not going to be the path that you want to go down. The whole Formula One thing is something that obviously excites you, and wanting to be involved in that world in some way because of the past. And then, like you say, one of the key things taken away is that, and listening to the different things that you've done in your career, is that you're open to opportunities. I think, and that's got to be for entrepreneurs that listen and startups, but people in general. Like I often use the phrase on here that I feel that life's an opportunity. So I often say yes to things and go, I don't know why I've said yes to that, but I'll figure that out later, because if you can grab those opportunities, you never know where that can go. And I think, but to be in that position, you've got to be open-minded to that, like you say. So those conversations, again, back to networking and what that looks like there, where if you go into that room just with an open mind, and
that's it, absolute mindset. I've read Simon Sinek's The Power of Now. Obviously, that is super helpful.
Yeah.
I found that really helpful business-wise.
Yeah.
But I think this is other book, the Infinite Game, which is all about the infinite mindset. And absolutely, you do see people are physically limited by, as in not their physical movement necessarily, but their mindset. So just little things in life made me realise, well, if you sort of set a goal for something, and you're open to opportunities, that know exactly how you're going to get there, or even if you're best qualified to achieve that goal, that positive mindset and visualization is so helpful. I suppose there's also an element of confidence,
self-belief
as well. Self-belief. That's a much better way of putting it.
I think that's it. I think it's ultimately, if you've got that open-minded growth mindset, and ultimately, whether it be confidence, whatever that looks, but ultimately self-belief, that you can go, I believe I can do that, and that just opens doors. And even if, like you said, I think what's great in listening to you talk, even if things haven't worked out or they haven't gone in a direction you go, you know what, we're sitting here having this discussion right now and we're talking about different experiences you've had in your life. And that's something quite special, isn't it? Because it could be that we're sitting here having a conversation where you may be in a job for 20, 30 years. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that either. Some people really love that and that's great for them. But isn't it great that you are able to do that and look at all the different experiences that you've gone through, and that's brought you to, and all those experiences, you've taken little bits from them, little learnings, and hence the role you're in now, that you're flourishing and do well because of those experiences. How old did you?
Yeah, I think my current bank account might be slightly fuller if I'd stuck with one thing and sort of diligently going about that. I think that's probably one of the lessons I've learned along the way, that there's also a real power to showing up. Yeah, none of this is like mind-blowing stuff which no one's said before, and I think I'm probably paraphrasing someone. So whoever said it, I've forgotten your name, but well done.
We'll use it.
Is it? Oh, now I've forgotten what the phrase is. No, that really has gone now.
We'll come back to it. But
that was all. That was it. Yeah. So I think it is really important, that thing about like showing up consistently, because in anything, like with marketing or networking or playing a musical instrument, I think, sort of having that sort of vision of where you want to get to, and just trusting in yourself that you're going to get better at it. That combined with focusing on your strengths as well. They're the two kind of big learnings I think I've had from everything. So it's been really interesting, frustrating as well, but really interesting. Some pretty unique experiences along the way. Meeting some really interesting people. I mean, that's probably is the best part of working in different industries, sectors, completely different types of people. But while everyone's different, also realising people are people, and appreciating people for who they are, and not whacking labels on people. That's so easy to do, and it's easy for the brain to go, right, put a label on you, and now I can file you in that spot. Sometimes it's really handy, and we need to do that.
We're still adamant to do that, aren't we? We still, straight away, we go, want to put people in a box and that stereotype, and it's because of how we're programmed to think that way, aren't we? We go, okay, getting back to gender and whatever it is, boy or girl, and that's got to be how it is, and you've got to do that. And I think, you go through, I guess you go through life, and where society is so adamant on having to put people in these boxes, and it's so, and like you said, from networking you can go in, but if you go in with that open mind, that don't judge a book by its cover, you don't put that person in that box, and you just get to know that person, who they are, then that's where the magic happens, I guess.
Absolutely. And I've got a funny feeling, about 20 minutes ago you asked me a question I still haven't answered about Eagle and Beagle.
Well, let's come back to that. I love it. Eagle and Beagle. Talk to me about that. With your brother, video production, 2014. How did that come about? What did that start? Talk to me about that.
Okay, so my brother George, about 5 years younger than me. He's a talented filmmaker and commercial film director. Also, to that point, mainly he'd done short films, some prize-winning short films, more on the sort of the creative, artistic side. And I was getting a little bit bored of the routine of with flying in terms of the cabin crew side of things. Really enjoyed it, but I just had that feeling my time, was, I'd done that bit. So, and it's never what I'd set out to do, even though I've really enjoyed it, made some great friends. It wasn't sort of what from the beginning I thought that's what I want to do. So I was speaking with George, and we came up. I think it was in the pub. That's all the best ideas happen in the pub.
Always.
And thinking, well, what can we do together? How can we help each other along? And again, it's going back to that. What are our strengths? Yeah. I've come from this communications background and understanding of brand values. I think the really important school for me was with Lucky Strike, such a strong brand, and being very clear on their values and values. That's inverted commas. You know what I mean? They're a brilliant company to work for. So we thought that with his kind of like technical and artistic, he basically he had a very good broad knowledge of video production, whereas I was more on the marketing side. So it seemed like a really good fit. Yeah. So we came up with the idea, Eagle and Beagle. The eagle takes in the bigger picture. Yeah. And the beagle sniffs out the detail. Also, I suppose on the technical side, you can have there's the wide shot and the tight in detailed shot. So that's the kind of story with that, and also memorable as well. So that we'll go for that.
We first met, wasn't we? When you was doing, I think you were filming with Gav for Search 7, and that's where we sort of first met and doing the video production side. So, but because that was 6 years or so you together doing that, wasn't you?
It was, yeah. And then so it was successful, and really proud of. A lot of the projects we did, and there's one of our favourite clients, lots of favourites, but one particular favourite was a company called Breakthrough Funding. What was great about them is they employed us and realised that we knew what we were doing, and they trusted us to get on with the job. And sort of we work with them. We're listening to what they want to achieve and what they're all about. And so, based on that approach and listening to them, this is what we suggest. They said, "Great, go for it." But I met name is now, she's got married, Susie Warren Smith, CBE, at a networking event where she saw us filming. Wow. So we were filming testimonials for this networking organisation. But anyway, so we worked for them, and that worked really well. We'd started roughly about the same time as this company. And what was really nice about that teamwork together and that trust was it's great for us. People loved the video we did, but also they really liked it, and it's good for them as well. And the leadership team of Breakthrough Funding, as it was then, said it definitely played a factor in being able to sell it to an organisation like EY, the global company, acquiring a boutique Kent-based R&D tax relief consultancy. Wow. So definitely not claiming all the credit, but it was very either very sweet or very kind, or very nice and to pass on the fact that it had, let's just say, a factor. I don't know what percentage, but that was great.
That's interesting. So I'm clear. So the people that you filmed for, that then EY then bought them out, and then so was that the link then for you to get involved with EY? That's how that come about, is it?
It is, yeah.
Yes, wow, okay.
So Eagle and Beagle is still going, and George is doing a great job there, and he's building up a super team of experts in their field, and he sort of like conducts them excellently. Whereas, after 6 years, I probably stayed maybe a little bit longer than I should have done. But again, no regrets. But lockdown, that kind of brought a lot of work. A lot of it was cancelled.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And
obviously the lockdown side of it was that probably one of the biggest challenges over the 6 years? As soon as that hit up with things being cancelled, or talk to me about some of the challenges over
definitely.
6
But
years.
going back to that opportunity, and I think there's thousands, probably millions of businesses around the world who did a similar thing and thought, right, let's take stock. What are we going to do next? Because you can get so caught up in being busy, which also there's a thing with ADHD. You can be stopping and starting, attention going one thing, and then it being caught something else. You can find yourself being really busy, but thinking, am I getting nearer to my what I'm trying to achieve here? Have I pushed the needle on? So it gives the opportunity to sort of take a step back and have a look. And so are we doing what we want to do? Are we doing it for the people we want to be doing it for? Are we focusing on our strengths? And looking at mission, values, all that really empowering stuff, and just making sure that's really rock solid. And that was really useful process to go through. But what we realised is we were not quite on the same page, and we thought it might be what was potentially not yet reaching sort of the potential it could have done in this time. So I felt time for a bit of a change. So instead of like the sort of taking a look, working on the business, it's like, right, I need to work on myself now.
Sure.
So a very patient girlfriend, allowing me that time to sort of get myself together and sort of think what I want to do. And sustainability is a massive thing for me. Sustainability, environmental and social, because they go absolutely hand in hand. So because it's something we'd explored, is becoming a B Corp, a company that puts people and planet before profit. And I'll come back to that. There's a networking link there as well.
Sure.
And like people like Gavin, Search 7, that purpose-led way of doing things, just really rezenated with me. It's like business doesn't have to be just for the sake of it. It can be about more, and that I think Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that sort of that purpose, that meaning is really important, and you can see why, because it's I'll explain how it feels, but it feels good when you're doing things for a reason.
Do you think there's been a shift since COVID as well around people's values around that and what they sort of look at within business as a whole, looking at the business and how they can be more purpose driven? Do you think people's mindsets have changed more, or was it just a bit of a phase and then people have still ultimately it's all about that bottom line and the financial gain? What are your thoughts about that?
I think more and more as the pressure builds and more signals that the planet is giving, and it's going to realise that not in our lifetimes, that it can never be a fad. In terms of there is a little bit of a fixation on just climate change, which it is damn important, but also there needs to be more focus on biodiversity and how important that is. We really do not know much in the grand scheme of things about biodiversity, and how even things like the soil supports us, and what happens when that sort of breaks down. So therefore, I think the priorities will change, and then I think automatically people realise we have to work together, have to collaborate, and that there probably won't be any room for companies which don't have. I mean, it can vary massively. I mean, purpose is different things, different people, but I think for a myriad of reasons, there will be no space for companies that don't have a purpose. So we can't really waste any energy, sort of literally in terms of electricity or oil or gas, but also in terms of people working in silos as well. And so I think the more sort of open people are around purpose, more people can identify with those with purpose, and that brings people together as well. It kind of makes it more of a, excuse the phrase, ecosystem. And like a brain that's functioning well, it's all talking to each other rather than sort of miles off down a cul-de-sac operating on its own. So again, there's this human condition at the centre of it. So I think that fads because people lose excitement, motivation, but there's so much to do. I don't think that can be the case.
I completely agree. I guess my point is more around the whole that companies ultimately as a whole and people as a whole, we're looking at. It's not financially based. What we're trying to do and what we do in life is not always based around that financially. You sort of alluded to it earlier around, I might have more in my bank balance if I hadn't have done so many different things and I'd stayed in one thing. But ultimately, when we're on our deathbed, we can't take that with us anyway.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather have no money in my bank account when I'm on my deathbed potentially, but look back at all the experiences I've had and difference I've made, potentially whatever that looks like. But those experiences, they're the things that we'll be hopefully remembering. And I guess the main point is looking at how, as individuals, as businesses, that we're more so around purpose driven than we are financial. I personally have seen even for myself, but certainly people I talk to on the podcast and businesses as a whole, that conversation is more shifting towards that, and it's been more so, I think, escalated since lockdown.
Definitely, I think everyone, even if it's not sort of business related, chance to sort of sit back and sort of take stock a little bit, and also it's really nice when nature sort of starting to get a bit closer as well. Like built up areas, hearing bird song more, and even sort of what is it in Australia or New Zealand, or it might be even close to home with the goats and sheep starting to come into the town centre. Maybe an opportunity to get out in nature a bit more, because that's so important. Is that because I think we've sort of othered ourselves from nature, but we are, like it or not, we are part of it. What's really exciting about the future is that ironically we can probably use technology to bring ourselves closer to nature, and therefore it's that relationship that people have with nature, because something that you go into speaking with Ben Bennett, Second Voice, about this, and it depends on where you live. But some people it's something you go and see at the weekend, once a month, or when you go on holiday, and it's very much a separate thing. So I think that relationship's built up more, seeing the beauty. Because I think at the heart of everyone, actually the most beautiful things I find in the world are natural things, or things which very closely reflect nature, like a Ferrari 250 GTO or something. The reason why that is such a gorgeous car to look at is because it probably reflects the kind of the natural shapes in nature. But also they don't have to be separate. That's another thing which I think sort of in society is that kind of polarization. We're seeing like with in politics at the moment, it's either the left wing or the right wing view on things. It's either that's completely right or it's completely wrong.
Again, about the left wing, right wing boxes where we want to.
Yeah, I think that was it. It was on
fluid.
Absolutely, and it's not sort of that labels of people who care about the environment. They're hardcore lefties called stumpy or it's but also what's quite interesting about a lot of B Corps, who I believe the majority are doing it for the right reason. But also, profit's not a dirty word. More success helps you to have more impact, and especially at the moment, it gives people the reason to get behind a brand as well. So they probably have better long-term relationships with their suppliers, with their customers, because it's more than just about who's the cheapest.
Because you don't mind sometimes paying, like people we've got, and I think that's the key. Like you said, profit's not a dirty word. You can put prices at what they are or whatever, but people will generally work. Maybe they will look at them. What will people be looking at? It's not necessarily about the price. It will be about what values they've got as a company and where they are. Because that's the company I actually want to be associated with and work with. I am paying more than the person over here, but the values that they've got align with what we are as a company, and that's where I think hopefully the world's going.
Absolutely, it's therefore interesting that some of these companies are actually doing really well.
Of course,
financially. So that's a real real positive, and also the fact that with the sustainability side of things, that it's sort of changing the narrative as well about it, because I think at the moment it's about we've got to stop doing this, stop doing that. No, let's do what humans have always done brilliantly and innovate and find new ways of doing things. There'll be things that are going on at the moment, or technologies that appear in 5-10 years' time, like quantum computing. Is a universal quantum Sussex-based business that could completely change the world. So it's not to give up. Keep going, because there's like going back to what you said about opportunities. Those opportunities, have faith they will will arise, and it could be really beautiful. Like just more sort of, I think biophilic is the phrase for sort of architecture construction, which is sort of more one with nature as well. Like sort of. Grass roofs, and that's probably a terrible example, but so the future doesn't have to be sort of one of total deprivation.
I think you're right, and look, it's obviously something like listening to you talk, and as we have in the past, I guess something like you said that you're passionate about, and I guess you must see a lot of, especially from an innovation point of view within EY and the breakthrough incentives, and from the R&D tax point of view. But the companies that you're exposed to or you're trying to help are these people that are trying to make change and innovating in that sort of way.
Absolutely, and that's why I can help all sorts of innovative companies, but I tend to focus, because you can't sort of talk to everyone all the time and have any impact. So I concentrate particularly on sustainable companies trying to do things more sustainably, green technology companies, clean technology companies, and so involved with sort of hydrogen, wind power, solar, but also all the software that enables that as well. So it feels really good to have a positive impact there as well. And beyond that, another ex-Brighton resident called Adam Bastock, Small 99.
Yeah, I know.
He's doing a great job of helping smaller businesses to identify areas they can become more sustainable. So he has monthly events around the country, around the UK. I think even now like spreading out around the world. People, planet, pint. So
Love that. Love that.
So like people and planet first,
Yeah.
and chat about that over a pint or two.
Because I've met Adam a couple of times sort of online. Cause didn't he move up to Glasgow?
Glasgow, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, fascinating what he's done. I think the key with it for me, with the small business side of it, is so many businesses, small businesses especially, want to try and make a difference or have an impact, but don't actually have a clue where to start. And speaking, Adam, he was one of our guest speakers on one of our online events that we did previously, and it was great to have that perspective on sometimes these little changes that you can make will really make a difference. But he's putting processes in place to give people that structure and that guide of how to help do that, which is so needed, isn't it? Because it becomes a little bit of a minefield, and then people don't do anything because you go, I don't even know where to start.
Overwhelm kicks
exactly
in,
that,
and then procrastination.
Absolutely. I'm just keen. I just want to take it back a little bit, because I'm just keen that process of during 2020 of this making that decision to come out of the business, and then obviously you said you took a little bit of time out and sort of reflected that. Did you see that at that point as that you'd failed at that in any way, like with the business? Obviously the business is still going, so the business is successful, but you as an individual going, I don't want to do that anymore, I need to do something else. What was your mindset around there?
Definitely, because I, during that journey, told myself, can't fail. So yeah, while it wasn't a failure, probably just hadn't got to where I wanted to be with the business. So yeah, there was mixed feelings. It was tough because it was kind of like a baby as well. You know, sort of the naming side of things, and also the identity with it as well. That people meet along the way. So yeah, it was tough.
But brave at the same time to look, because what people do a lot. Jeremy is, as you mentioned, we both know him really well, but mentions about there's a lot of times that we carry on going for so long, knowing that actually it's not the right thing for us. And I always refer back to the salon when I closed that, and thinking like, could have probably closed that quite a bit tighter, but I guess I always refer to it for myself that I always said, I remember the day I walked in and closed it, as upsetting as it was and devastating and all the negative stuff that comes with it. From the positive side of it, I looked and I knew that for me I'd given it everything I could and I'd give it my best shot. And that didn't work out. I had to actually close the business, so it's slightly different, because like you said, you created something that is still going, and it's, you know, it was a successful business in that sense, and you know, but hadn't got you to where you wanted. But to actually take that decision to go, this is not right for me, I'm going to take a step back and I need to go on a different path. That's actually the positive side of it. Like you said, that's why I was keen to understand your mindset, because I can appreciate potentially looking at it and going, because I've felt it myself sometimes that, I've stopped another thing. That's another thing. And people going, Sam's not doing that now, but he's going to go and do that. Sam's not doing that now, he's going to go and do that. And do you get that feeling? Like, because all that is other people's expectations of me, and I just identified that's not right for me now, I'm going to take a different path. And I think that's sometimes a brave thing to do, no?
Yeah, there's definitely all those feelings in there. But it's just, I didn't want to sort of wanted to have, I suppose, talking about the deathbed side of things. I'd like to sort of, as part of me, I'd like to achieve things to sort of make my folks proud, like anyone does pretty much. But also...
Do you feel that they're proud of you now, though?
They say they are, so I'll have to take that on face value. So, I'm very lucky with the supportive parents that I've got, because sort of I appreciate that not everyone maybe can, while it's not all been plain sailing, not everyone necessarily has got the same opportunity to try different things necessarily, because needs must. and it's definitely been part of needs must in some of my decision making. But there has been like the racing side of things and fly. I appreciate sort of the privilege in those areas, but also with that sort of comes sort of that sort of perspective, trying different things that sort of in different areas. It brings a different perspective, which I'm really grateful for. So again, I hope to have as much empathy for all different types of people and as possible, really. Yeah.
It is interesting. I actually, it's really strange, like listening to you talk and learning a little bit more about, because there's so much about your journey that I didn't know, which has been great to find out about. But listening to you talk and relating it, I guess, to myself, and I'm the same a little bit with me, all the different things I've sort of tried. And I still ask myself that question. Like my mum and dad will say they're proud of me, but I personally, my own belief in that is I question that. I don't feel like I've achieved what I wanted to, or what I could do to make them proud, if you know what I mean. That sticks with me in where I am, I guess.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't think too much about what other people think. Probably, Sam, if you could see yourself how other people see you and what you do, what you achieve, then at the risk of sounding creepy, I think you'd appreciate that you've achieved a lot. Yeah.
That's very kind. And maybe, like I say, I guess we've got our own.
Well, I think we've all got unfinished business.
We've got exactly that. I think that's it. This was not. I think like we've all got our own. And like, I remember talking to Jo Baldwin-Trotton on here. It was a really fascinating conversation with her, and she was saying, "What, who are you trying to prove to? Where is it yourself, or is it your parents? Is it your partner or your friends or whatever?" And I've sort of been asking myself that question over the last few weeks, like since I interviewed her. Actually, I'm actually trying to prove to a lot of different people as well as myself, and where I sort of sit on that thing. So it's just interesting to see, like you say, it's been fascinating listening to the different things you've done, and but still that thing of identifying actually that this is not right for me now. I need to go and do another path. I think that's such a brilliant, actually, that is a superpower, and that's something great to actually celebrate as well. Because I'd want my kids, I always talk about the kids, but I want my kids to do that. I'd love them to go, not just go, because it's sometimes easier to stay on that same path than it is to go, this is not right, I've got to go. Because that's a difficult path to take, isn't it?
Yeah.
So changing something completely different and going, I'm going to go and try something new now, is a difficult journey. And how many people will stay in that same job for years or carry on running that business for years just because it's the easier path? And
thought of change can be quite scary. But so in 2020, I thought, sustainability. I want to have more specific knowledge. I've sort of on LinkedIn written an article or two about my sort of thoughts on what is the new normal and things like that. Going to look like hopefully something a bit more positive and rosier. Again, this is slightly the side of the impulsivity of ADHD coming through. I signed up to the Masters at Sussex University in Sustainable Development. And so there's going to be a part-time course over 2 years, and but sort of quickly realised I've missed that human interaction aspect of it, and that was going to take me probably a bit more than 20 hours a week to do it. So I wasn't going to leave a lot of time for to get a part-time job. So. And again, I sort of started to get a bit sort of breathless and panicky about it, and so again, it was hard, but sort of sooner rather than later, I decided no, this is not the right time now to do this, and not to worry about it's something else I've started and not finished. So that was that. But did some webinar online. I don't know if it's free or 10 quid or something.
Yeah.
And I can't unfortunately remember the name of the business that ran it, but it's about career change.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's quite interesting, but it was a bit sort of high level. But at the end, they said, if you tweet about this, you'll get 20 quid off another event.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then someone from BBC Radio 4 contacted me and said, do you want to be on the radio in the morning, like about 6 o'clock in the morning? So I do and I don't.
Yeah.
But
we can make it about at 9:30. That'd be amazing.
But I said, but what actually came out of my mouth was, yeah, sounds really good. So kind of pushing
yes
myself
now.
into it.
Yeah.
But really pleased I did, because again, it's like that opportunity going on that webinar, then going on the radio show, another opportunity. There's someone that runs a business called Career Changes, career something along those lines. Anyway, and then I did one. That was an interesting experience. But I did one of their sort of like a weekend course, which got a little bit deeper into, rather than just looking at CV and kind of like repeating the same thing over and over again. It's like, what makes you tick? What are you about? How can you sort of uncover your superpowers, as it were? What skills are perhaps transferable, so you can get started? So starting to imagine what would be an ideal role, really. And I think there's got to be something to, the book The Secret and things like that, visualization, because I think the fact of part of the exercise of writing it down obviously starts sowing the seeds and it gives you a bit more sort of clarity on where you want to get to. And that's when I had the conversation, I caught up with Susie Warren-Smith. So she was the owner of Breakthrough Funding. And she's saying that EY Breakthrough Incentives were looking for someone to help develop the business. So essentially Surrey and Sussex. So because I knew the team genuinely, this is going to, I can, because I'm employed by them, it's going to come across really naff. But honestly, so I told people at the time, they're a great team, so it's a no-brainer. Even though it's a new kind of sphere for me, I knew that it's going to be supportive, and it's been great itself. It's been a bit of its own journey, but it's that visualization thing. The thing about having a bigger impact, being able to, not that we do it single-handed. Lots of companies that do R&D tax relief and help companies get innovation grants and these other tax incentives. But it's nice doing something which is really genuinely helping businesses to grow, and also more widely. It's probably a small part, but it's a part in helping the economy as well, because there's been a few things like Brexit, COVID, all sorts of good stuff. Unfortunately now with the global uncertainty with the war in Ukraine, but it's sort of, there's so much good stuff in the UK. I think it's probably globally recognised as a really innovative country as a whole, and there's something in the, I don't know, the culture or the genes, and I don't know, or just the sort of, I don't know what it is, but it sort of comes through in how awesome the things like you really see it in music, the creativity here in business or culturally is amazing. So gone off on a wild tangent there, but it's nice to be part of something more sort of,
it's in line with your value. It seems like from talking and understanding the values of the company and what you were sort of looking for at that time, all sort of aligned, and hence again opportunities present themselves, whatever that looks like. It's what's fascinating is the link between like the EY and the video that you did previously with the breakthrough incentives, and that's what, and now you're working on that cyclical thing is amazing. Like, again, if you're a good person, you come into things with an open mind, opportunities present themselves, and like you said, the whole belief visualization and what that can present itself.
Definitely. And what's nuts is, I know about 6 months, a year in starting with EY, they announced that, so they I say paid, encourage people, and it's free for, I think, any employee, as long as they sort of do other certain sort of smaller learning modules first, is to get an MBA. So that's awesome, I think, in terms of social mobility, but also, it helps the company get better. It's one of those just sort of holistic things which really works. But considering I'd, for different reasons, quit the Sustainable Development Masters, now you can enrol on a Sustainability Masters with EY, which again, awesome. It's not something they shout about massively outside, but it's it shows the importance of sustainability from the big four accountancy, management consulting firms are encouraging everyone to really get to grips with it. But also it's nice their values as well, like practicing what they preach. So it's fortunate, and I think that's why Breakthrough Funding was acquired by EY, because there was, on that side of things, a matching of values as well. Because I think they'd had a few suitors, and they felt that was the right one. Yeah.
Love that. Look, we're sort of coming towards the end. I want to tell me what does the future hold for you?
Interesting. I think it's probably still refining my purpose. That's an easy big word to just spit out, but refining that, and again, where I can have the biggest impact. I think just really working on that, and I think that sort of goes hand in hand with that self-awareness journey, of which, with this since this year, it's sort of stepped up a gear, and so really sort of understanding how I work best, where my strengths are, and just sort of like honing in on that really. But in terms of environmental sustainability, social sustainability, because without people feeling empowered to do things better for the environment, then it's all together. That's really important to me, and again, that's a really easy thing to say. I love the planet, but it's. I think it's when you see the more you learn about the changes we've got to make and how that makes me feel. All sorts of different emotions. There's some anger there as well, and also sadness with the so many species that we've lost. But the positive side of, we are now as businesses, individuals, actually in a time in history where we are aware of what's happened, but we can do something about it, and I think that's really, really exciting, and it's keeping positive, and changing the story and the narrative, and how we collaborate, communicate with each other about these things, about sort of positive impact.
Love that. And what's great to hear, it seems like that your level of self-awareness and something that you're clearly really passionate about regarding the planet, and you're in an organisation that's helping in that way, in whatever small way that may be. You are having an impact by the role that you've got and your belief system in what you're trying to do, and that aligns with the company values and what they're trying to achieve as well. So in that context, you're on that right path and having an impact and making a change, which is quite a powerful thing.
Yeah, and
which is awesome.
Yeah, and at some point I can sort of help others.
Yeah.
At the moment, I feel it's a bit of a duty. What I learn on my sustainability journey is to communicate it as well as I can. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, mate. It's been great. Look, we'll come to the end. I always finish with on this series. We'll finish with a couple of quick fire questions. So I'm going to ping these at you before we wrap up. But first one piece of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
One piece of advice, crikey. Yeah, I've made a lot of cock-ups. So there's a lot of different things.
I'm there with you, don't worry.
It's kind of themed around focus on your strengths.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even a parable in the Bible about talents.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I think to really focus on those, and then it's kind of cyclical. You enjoy that thing more, you get better at it, and there's that. So I suppose that tied in with that is he's more likely to turn up every day for that. Is that consistency and that really powerful thing about it's like the compound interest, like with investments, it sort of seems to not be doing much, and then the compound interest, it starts to go shooting up. Like that, Warren Buffett talks about a lot. So I think those things go hand in hand, and actually then in the future you'd be grateful to yourself for following that advice. Yeah,
love that. Okay, cool. Who has been your biggest inspiration throughout your journey, and why?
It's connected with his spirituality. But more the way it sort of just was. George Harrison. I don't know. It just always seems to pop into my head when that question's asked. But more recently, and I think I can get away with this now because she's left. She's done with the acquisition. She's done her 2 years contractually, and now she's doing her own podcast, Food Talk podcast.
Yeah.
But Susie Warren-Smith, CBE, who very much deserved to get the CBE in the honours list in January, because she's not had it easy. Yeah. She's done different things. So she's worked in the creative industries, financial services, management consultant. She's also helped work with charities. I think with her journey, she's really learned what's important to her, and these values really do go hand in hand with business, and so she created it. She kind of had a last throw of the dice, and using her retirement, as it were, maybe a bit more to sort of set up this company, like doing R&D tax relief right, and the way she went professionally about business, like even though there's just the two of them setting it up like it's a big business, all the foundations were right, employing on attitude and values, going against the grain, not caring about what other people think, and rather than sort of taking the tax relief, let's be honest, it can be a bit dry. There's no wonder most people think it's not applied to them, because research and development, what does that actually mean? Tax relief. Sure. But they call it cash for innovation, and there's all sorts of innovative ways they reach the market, and there's actually communicating to people in a way which made sense to them. So the adversity side of things, I think she's written a book on it recently. So even sort of discrimination she's got through, coming from, she said herself, very humble beginnings. She's absolutely smashed it. She's got the best of all these different experiences, and she's deservedly done really well, but she's still mentoring people, really helping them to achieve their potential. So it's really inspirational lady. So at the risk of sounding like a whatever knows her.
I've heard you speak about her before as well, many times, and what a fascinating lady. But cool. Right, final one to wrap up. Could you recommend a business book or podcast to our listeners that has maybe had an impact on you and your career?
Yeah, so I'm a part of this sort of unofficial group called the ESG Collective, and people from different backgrounds focused on environment, social and governance, basically like environmental, social sustainability. And I had a one-to-one chat with this guy, and he gave me all these podcasts to listen to. I thought, well, I've got to find time to listen to these, but I'm so glad I did. One real standout one for me is John Richardson and the Futurenauts. Wow. John Richardson, he's great anyway, but despite him hosting it, he is funny. It is funny, but the subjects they talk about is like the future of energy, the future of education, and generally it's sort of looking at how kind of screwed, that's the polite way of putting it, this phrase it slightly differently, we are. How do we get this screwed and how do we unscrew ourselves? And generally it's looking at things from a really systemic point of view and how everything relates together. And it's a real eye-opener. You get some really interesting perspectives, and from that you can see what different areas which in industry, business, life, which when these people start talking to each other, incredible things can happen. You get that collaboration, and just everything. We're ultimately all connected, part of this one system on planet Earth. So let's embrace it and make the most of it. So that went right off track there again. But yeah, John Richardson and the Futurenauts, I love it.
What a way to finish. Love that. Mate, listen, thanks so much for coming on and being so open and honest, especially around ADHD and sharing your story, which I'm sure will hopefully encourage more people to speak about it openly and honestly, and just sharing some of the challenges that you face as well along the way. And listen, it's been a brilliant conversation. Thanks for coming on, mate. I'm so glad we finally got this in the diary, and I've loved every minute of it. So, mate, thank you so much.
It's been awesome, real privilege. Thank you very much, because listening and seeing the guests that you have on, there's in pretty cool company. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I think I've realised being defensive and not talking about things, that's never really helped me. I don't think so. Probably a bit cathartic for me, but also if I can help anyone, if there's anyone listening to it and anything sort of resonated, particularly like on the ADHD side of things, and they want to have a chat about it, I'd be more than happy to do so. But thanks for the opportunity. It's been amazing.
And that is a wrap.